Hi there. So, May is over and I was thinking about making my May wrap-up about the books I read in May. This month I read 7 books and I started out with the Athenian Constitution and credited to Aristotle, but I think it was one of his students that put it together. It's not something I would recommend to read for anyone. It's quite boring, but maybe if you are interested in historical politics, this may be a good source of material. Then I went to a more exciting read by Aristotle, and it is the Nicomachean Ethics. And this is one of his major works, and it's also much thicker. There are some parts of it that was really boring to read, but that's because it is old and he is discussing things that seems really obvious and that we have gotten past a long time ago. But there are still some parts there that is typically Aristotelian, and the building of logic, the concept of happiness and everything that he is discussing in here that is really valuable today and gives I think a good insight into how Aristotle was thinking philosophy. If you are into Aristotle and philosophy, then you should of course pick this up. The next book I read was on my iPhone, and it is The Foundations of Wisdom, the Book of Proverbs by Richard S. Hockett. And this is, I think, a self-published book about what he learned while he read the Proverbs, and he discusses the 4 character types that is found in the book. And those 4 are the simple person, the mocker, the fool, and the wise. And he explains the differences and the relations between these types of persons. And it was really nice way to get into the message in the Proverbs in a really great way. The next book I read was a book called Equal is Unfair. And this one was released this May and I had pre-ordered it, so I got it early. It's by Don Watkins and Yaron Brook, and it is some great anti-egalitarian reading. This is a really great read and I recommend you to pick it up. So the next book is somewhat in the same field, and that is politics. And this book is called Scandinavian Exceptionalism, Culture, Markets and the Failure of Third Way Socialism, written by Nima. And this is a critique of the third way socialism that we see in the Scandinavian countries, about what made it work, and that we really were much better off before we introduced the third way socialism, and that the biggest part that kept our society well off is basically the culture of this of the Nordic people. So he discusses this from a different perspectives, use a lot of numbers, and show why socialism maybe is not that great of an idea, even though it seems to work in the Nordic countries. Then I read a book called Work as Worship, how the CEOs of Interstate Batteries, Hobby Lobby, PepsiCo, Tyson Foods and more bring meaning to their work. And this is not really a book by one author, it's more a compilation of interviews and stories by these CEOs of the different companies about what they learned about work, about character and leadership, and then it's compiled into this book. And it has some good stories and added some insight into their world, but it seems still so far away from my ordinary work day. Didn't really touch my soul that much. And then the last book I picked up was this little book by Andy Stanley that is called Since Nobody is Perfect, How Good is Good Enough. It's about why our doing is never good enough for pleasing God, and it was easy to read book, made for an audience that are not that familiar to the message of the Bible. And that was all of the 7 books I read, and I hope you have a nice and warm June.